It's another peaceful day, isn't it, Poochie? Woof!
And now for a special bulletin.
Huh? Woof?
The world is being overrun by colored blocks. They are appearing from the depths of the earth. In India, America, and even Egypt. The world is in peril. Many cities are completely covered by these blocks.
What did he say? Woof! Looks like I'd better take care of this. Okay, see you later.
It was something that felt like it could have been released in the mid-80s, from a gameplay perspective anyway, but Namco's arcade puzzler actually saw the light of day, figuratively, in late 1999, which is a bit mad if you consider the high-end shooters and fighter sort of things that you'd find in arcades at that time. Nevertheless, it was something of a delight to arcade goers young and old, largely praised as something quite refreshing. It's a mining puzzle game, not entirely dissimilar to another of Namco's much older arcade exports, Dig Dug, but mixed with falling block elements akin to columns or something of that nature. As it happens, the Dig Dug reference isn't unfounded, as the character you play as here, Susumu Hori, is actually the son of Taizo Hori, the air pump-wielding spelunker from that game. It wasn't long before the first Mr. Driller was ported to a plethora of home systems and handhelds, including our own Game Boy Color in 2000, and was followed up by a string of sequels. This version of Mr. Driller 2 was a Japanese launch title for the Game Boy Advance, though it had something of a staggered release across the rest of the world. Infogrames would bring it to Europe at the end of January 2004, and was most likely done due to their propensity for smaller scale, ready-made, quick wins. By 2004, production would undoubtedly have been cheaper than its system launch, and so there was little risk, really, whacking together a quick little package to get into the hands of millions of people who owned an Advance by now. However, North America would need to wait more than a year again to get it, where Namco themselves would reissue the game. This was after the launch of the Nintendo DS, so it's perhaps a wonder why Namco decided to put out a launch title 4 years after the fact, when originally they decided against doing so due to limited commercial potential outside of Japan. The truth is that before this, in 2004, they had already released another entry in the franchise, the DS's Drill Spirits, and they seemed somewhat keen to breathe new oxygen into Susumu's mining tank. Seeing as how fans of Drill Spirits could still play Game Boy Advance games on their DS, it was kind of a no-brainer to finally get Mr. Driller 2 out in North America. I suppose the question is, does a game that felt fresh and innovative in 2001 still feel that way after not just 4 full years of the Game Boy Advance's library, but the beginning of a brand new handheld generation as well? It's perhaps something of a moot point these days, seeing as how it's all retro by today's standards. Nevertheless, for a Game Boy Advance game's release to be wedged right in between 2 DS releases from the same franchise is perhaps quite a unique situation. After the events of the first game, Susumu is sat at home watching the news with his dog when he sees that the blasted puzzle blocks have returned all over the world. If someone doesn't do something, the whole planet will be overrun by blocks. The concept of Mr. Driller is pretty simple. Dig to the end goals buried in this mine shaft by destroying coloured blocks that stand in your way. Drilling through something destroys it, as well as every similar colour touching it, and everything above will drop down, Boulder Dash style, potentially crushing you, but also potentially matching with other like-coloured blocks. If 4 or more blocks of the same colour touch, they'll also clear, which can create some serious chain reactions. You're given a limited air supply and can replenish this by finding air capsules, which will give you something like 20% of it back. You die if you run out of oxygen, or more likely, get mashed by blocks. The aim is to get to the bottom of the level, drill through the source of the puzzle blocks, and stop it generating blocks. Every so often you'll come across a large green block that, once drilled through, will clear all blocks above it. The deeper you go, the level changes, with oxygen pickups being rarer and your breath consumed faster. Later on, your oxygen pickups will be surrounded by these brown X blocks that can be drilled through but come at a cost of 20% of your oxygen. Seeing as how the pickups only replenish 20% anyway, the two things cancel out, which is where the puzzle aspect comes in. If you can somehow line up 4 X blocks, they'll eliminate each other for free, allowing you to grab the oxygen free of charge. There are an initial 3 stages with various goals. India is the easiest and only requires a depth of 500 meters. America's puzzle block source is 1,000 meters down, and Egypt's is double that again. You can play on 3 difficulty levels as well. Once the 3 main stages in mission mode have been beaten, you can even unlock the North Pole, which is really tough. As well as the main story, you can play Endless Driller mode, which simply requires you to get as deep as you can in the number of lives you have, 5 on easy, 3 on normal, or 1 on hard. Then there's even a time attack mode, which is a race to reach certain depths within a specified time limit. There are 10 shorter courses which are now not random, their layouts are all predetermined, and once beaten you can even play them backwards. One cool feature we have here is this card collection gallery, whereby achieving certain things in the various game modes will give you driller cards that you can collect. They don't do anything as such, apart from give you a little bit of information about the characters and so on, but are akin to the achievements thing you get on Steam or whatever. Mr. Driller 2 sits comfortably alongside its launch title contemporaries, particularly Kuru Kuru Kururin and Choo Choo Rocket, which occupy a similar kind of vibrant, cartoony puzzler space. If you liked either of those two, you'll probably dig this as well. It's an addictive yet incredibly simple little puzzler, as all the best are, which has enough unlockables and a well thought out skill curve to keep you coming back to get ever deeper into. As regards to the staggered release thing we talked about earlier, my question would not be whether this was worth a 2005 re-release, as I'm convinced it is, for the low price it would surely have gone for by then. I'd possibly question whether it should have been this one or the 2002 sequel, Mr. Driller A for Bacteria, instead though, as that was possibly the better game and never actually got a localization.